back for more. That's ubnradio.com.
Welcome to Both Sides Now, featuring the unconventional duo, Dr. Shirley and Medium Kellee White. Two perspectives, one world. This is Both Sides Now.
Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Both Sides Now. I'm Dr. Shirley.
And I'm Medium Kellee White.
And we've got John here, our wonderful engineer.
Hello, hello.
And we've had requests to put you on camera.
Oh, really?
So put yourself on
Hello.
camera and say hello to everybody so everybody can see your beautiful face.
Thank you.
And it is Kelly's birthday today.
It is.
Happy birthday,
Well,
Kelly.
happy birthday, Kelly.
Thank you.
Right today, exactly today.
Well, what's so funny about today? Oh,
Listen.
'Cause you're so special in every way. Happy birthday
thank you.
to you.
Thank you, John. You're a doll.
Oh, you're welcome. Happy birthday.
Thank you. Well, it's kind of an interesting time to have a birthday. You know, today is in the middle of 2 eclipses.
Wow. Tell us all about that.
Let me tell you a little bit about what's going on cosmically.
Yeah.
If you feel like you're getting like a kick in the pants right now, that's pretty much what's going on. We had Mercury went retrograde on the 17th. So Mercury retrogrades, what they do is they bring us back into an old situation. So you may find yourself where all of a sudden an old friend comes in, an old lover comes in, old family members you haven't seen.
Now, this isn't necessarily a good thing, though, right?
Well, it can be. I'll tell you what
Okay.
Mercury's good for. It's good for reconnecting. So
Okay.
let's say some people have a high school reunion. Those people will come back in.
Okay.
And you never know. That could lead to, business opportunities or,
Right,
friendships or those kind of things.
Right.
It's also good for people going back to school.
Okay.
It's great for that. It's great for writers. Let's say you've had this idea and you've wanted to implement it. Please, everybody, this is the time to do it.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Okay, that's
so
great
it does
to know.
have, it's benefits for sure. Now, of course, it's got its other problems too. Like for
got that
instance,
other side.
Like for instance, we had 2 refrigerators in our farm in Wisconsin broke.
Wow.
Things
Okay.
will break. A lot of computers will go awry.
And why is it with technical stuff? Is it the energy in the air or something?
It's
Okay.
Mercury. Mercury's the fastest moving planet. And so when that goes retrograde, which means to go backwards, but a planet doesn't go backwards, it goes very slow. So if you have a planet, Mercury, that goes so fast, and all of a sudden it goes very, very slow, things will break. It's not a great time to buy real estate, except for some people, oddly enough. But it's not a good time to sign contracts. It's not
Okay.
a good time to buy a car. You'll probably buy a lemon.
Really?
Probably.
Well, that's good to
I mean,
know, though.
Yeah,
That's really good to
good
know.
odds, unless it depends on where it's placed in your chart. But yeah,
Right.
so additionally, because that's not enough, we had.
What else do you have for us, Kelly?
I'll pull this one out. We have a solar eclipse a week from Sunday. You can watch it I want to say, in the Los Angeles area between 5 p.m. I believe, and about 8 p.m.
Okay,
So
what day was that?
September 27th,
Okay,
a week from this
okay.
Sunday. Now, this means it's an excellent time to let go of old conditions,
Okay.
attitudes, and behaviors. So it's a good time for that. In addition, the same exact type of eclipse happened on September 27th, 1996. And 1977. So you
Wow.
can actually look back at those times and say, where was I? What was my life like? That
Well,
may
that's
give you
so
some hints
interesting.
of what to expect going during this period of time.
Mm-hmm,
So expect change. It's also change in relationships. So you may get closer with somebody. You may get pulled apart from somebody. Expect reflect on yourself of how you see others reflect on you. So
Right.
you'll learn through others, especially through relationships during this particular period that we're in. And this is going to last for a long time. I mean, even though the eclipse is just one period of time, this is going to last for months and months. You'll feel the effects.
The eclipse or the
No,
Mercury retrograde?
Well, you'll feel the eclipse and the retrograde.
Okay.
The effects of it will last for months.
Okay.
Actually,
okay.
so I would say do a lot of self-reflection. expect challenges in your life.
Well, you started to say about people coming into your life, and you talked about, the positive side of it, but you were saying also the negative side could be old people that you kind of wanted to get away from might all of a sudden show up, right?
Absolutely. And if you don't want somebody in your life, run.
Yeah.
Don't answer the phone.
I know this sounds really Pollyanna, but what I always see these is opportunities to practice maybe things that we're not, very comfortable doing. So use it as an opportunity to practice setting boundaries. If it's people that you don't want in your life, practice setting boundaries to keep them out of your life.
That's a perfect idea. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
So, well, thank you.
You're welcome.
I think we should add this as a segment. You at the beginning, you just kind of give us what to
I will do
expect,
that.
what's going on
I
with the
think that's
energy in the
great.
air and
Yeah.
stuff
You
like
bet
that. Okay.
Because it's always something.
Yeah, I bet it is. I've learned from you. It always is. Yeah. So, and it's kind of good to know, even for people who don't believe in this stuff, it's kind of good to just have it in the back of your mind just to go, oh, okay. Yeah. I find that I can tolerate things better if they're in my repertoire of possible expectations, possible things to expect. And actually, our brain works that way. If something goes against what we expect, we have a much harder time dealing with it and accepting it and kind of moving through it than if it's something that we can't expect.
Oh, absolutely. And the other thing is, it's always good, and we'll be talking about personality disorders.
Yes.
So let's say you have a personality disorder, say borderline, and we'll discuss all about what that's about. But let's say, and they can't take blame. So it's easy for them to say, well, Mercury's retrograde.
Right, exactly, exactly. And, every so often, then they might be telling the truth.
Right,
they
yeah,
might,
exactly.
They might be making sense. But that is, our show for today is personality disorders. And, what this program is built on is the two perspective, the psychological perspective, which you also know because you're a trained therapist, but more coming from you, the spiritual perspective,
Yes.
Of why these things are. And if anyone has ever dealt with someone with personality disorders, you know how difficult it can be. And for those of you who haven't, consider yourself lucky, or maybe you just don't know yet. And once we describe what it is, you'll go, oh,
That
I
is
have dealt
true.
with one.
That
Yeah.
is true. And another explanation that I wanted to bring up, there's another thing too, that let's say you know somebody that doesn't even understand the personality disorder, that they don't have any in their life is very easy. Well, here's my thought on that somebody who has a really nice, easy life, it's rare. Every once in a while you run into that type of a person. Like, how could that possibly be? Since this universe, is a school for, frankly, hard knocks often. Right. How is that possible that you have such an easy life? But it's my understanding that it's because in a previous life it was so difficult that they chose this one to take a breath.
Take it easy.
Take it easy.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
Wow. That's a really nice explanation. I like that.
I did too.
So let me just start with the basics on personality disorders. For those of you who've never heard of them, it's, our Bible, the DSM, which is the Diagnostic Manual for all mental illnesses, for all disorders, actually, is separated into two, mental illnesses and personality disorders. Mental illnesses are more a chemical-based illness in our brain. So it's depression, anxiety, bipolar, schizophrenia, delusions, that kind of stuff.
Something that can be cured from medicine.
Exactly.
Often.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And an important piece of that is they're ego dystonic, which means that we know they're there. Many times we don't like it. It doesn't feel good, and we want to try and help ourselves to get rid of it, either through therapy, through medicine, whatever. Right. Then come the personality disorders.
Oh boy.
Yeah, the granddaddy of all of them.
Yeah.
And the reason why they're called personality disorders and not mental illnesses is because they're literally part of our character, part of our personality. So that means that they start to kind of form at early age, as childhood. And also, because they're part of our personality, they tend to be ego-syntonic, which means I'm fine. I'm not feeling that there's anything wrong with me. What's wrong with you?
Right.
So that's what makes them so difficult to treat, because more often than not, people who have personality disorders won't come in for treatment. They may come in if their life is so not what they want it to be that they'll come in going, why? What's wrong with the world?
Right. It's never them.
Yeah, it's never them. Or a spouse will bring them in.
Yes.
But for the most
And quickly run.
run.
Drop them off and say fix them.
So that's kind of a foundation of what they are. There's been a new and revised diagnostic manual, and so there's 9 now. They took out histrionic.
Oh, they did?
Yeah, they did.
Oh, my favorite.
I know. So there's 9 personality disorders. They're in 3 different clusters: Cluster A, Cluster B, Cluster C. And we're actually, for those of you that are interested in reading, we have more of a basic kind of description. We'll put the website, right? A link to a really nice website that kind of talks about personality disorders and gives you like an overview.
Perfect.
Right? So, well, you know this information too. Tell us some of the, I'll look it up, put on my old lady glasses.
Okay.
And look up just so we can give you the exact, let's see, in Cluster A, Cluster A is considered the odd or eccentric personality disorders. Okay. Cluster B is the dramatic, emotional, and erratic ones.
Okay.
Yeah. And Cluster C is the anxious and fearful ones. So just in case anyone's interested, Cluster A is schizoid personality disorder. How would you describe?
Oh, schizoids I think they're the loners, aren't they? They just want to be alone. They don't care.
Yeah.
They're different.
They're kind of cold. They're introverted. They're withdrawn.
Yeah.
They're
eccentric. They're eccentric.
Yeah. And what's at the core of that is extreme fearfulness of getting close to people. But again, because it's a personality disorder, they're not in touch with that fear. Right. So they're actually perfectly okay being alone and kind of being loners and not having a lot of social skills or not wanting to socialize.
Yeah, not really.
Yeah. Then we have the paranoid personality. And this goes beyond someone who is, concerned about something, or every so often maybe, you heard that there's a robbery in your neighborhood and you get a little concerned. These are people who are paranoid 24/7, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And you can tell that, they're untrusting, they're unforgiving, they're always thinking, you did something wrong to me. They're always having to look, that hypervigilance of having to look and see what other people are doing to them.
Right.
And then there's schizotypal. So how would you describe this one?
Schizotypal. That's odd and eccentric as well, isn't it?
It's more people who kind of dress. It's in odd ways. There was this one woman who actually was the mother of these kids at Sydney's elementary school. And she would wear these bright colored pink hot pants. Her hair was a huge bouffant. She had blue eyeshadow, pink blush, red lipstick, huge glasses like this, and extremely nice woman. And had no clue that she looked so kind of bizarre.
Was she bipolar as well?
I didn't get to know her that well to diagnose anything further. But you can kind of tell by the way they look, and they have these they have kind of magical thinking.
Yes.
Where I get home and my cats communicate with me, and it's not delusional. It's just really what they believe. Yeah. So let me skip to Cluster C, because Cluster B is the one that we're going to concentrate on today. Yeah, because they're the most fun.
Yeah.
The avoidant personality disorder is people who are hypersensitive to rejection, and so they kind of avoid people.
Right, but they actually don't want to be loners. They are loners, but they really don't want to be. It's actually quite painful.
It is very painful because, but again, because they're not in touch with that core issue, then it's almost like they suffer in silence. These people,
they do,
right?
They do.
Yeah.
But you know what? The good news for them is that there's the internet now. And so they can actually reach out and meet people on the internet. And that has been a godsend for these people.
Yeah, and as much as we want to be, I wouldn't say critical or we look at that as not the best thing, for people who are avoidant, I mean, that's the next best thing to actually having some contact because other than that, they actually won't go out and won't have any contact. So it's the difference for them, this particular group, to either be extremely lonely and in pain at home or at least having some connection through the internet.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Then we have the dependent personality disorder. So people who can be very submissive and dependent. What do you think? Well, are you going to the party?
Absolutely.
Right?
They will not give an opinion. They've got to have somebody else tell them what they're going to think.
Yeah. Doesn't sound like any one of us in this room.
No.
And the obsessive compulsive personality disorder. There's a difference between the obsessive compulsive, mental illness disorder, which are the people that wash their hands 100 times a day and that kind of thing, because that's under an anxiety disorder. This is a personality. This is part of my personality. So everything has to be perfect. Everything.
They're very
has to
rigid.
be extremely rigid. Yeah. What else would you say about them?
They also can't be wrong either.
Yeah, they
Interesting enough.
They strive for perfection, and they kind of expect everybody else to be,
to get in line.
Yeah.
Do it clean the way they do. It's not clean enough.
Yeah. And they don't, extremely punctual, which is, with these disorders, there's always a silver lining or something that's wonderful. Like, for example, if you can find a job that kind of fits with, if you actually have a disorder, and again, we should probably say that it's all on a continuum. So some people may have simple traits of it, and some people have the actual full-blown disorder.
Oh, absolutely.
But for example, you want your accountant to have a little bit of the, obsessive-compulsive personality disorder, not the other one where they're washing their hands and be distracted. But so every penny has to be accounted for.
Right.
That
might drive you crazy, and to live with one is very difficult sometimes.
It is. Yeah, it can be. It can be. Yeah.
Mm.
But if you find a job that kind of goes along with your personality, you can have a very fulfilled and wonderful life.
Absolutely.
Like the ones we're going to get into now, the narcissist. I want my surgeon to be a narcissist. I want him to be the biggest narcissist ever because he can't make a mistake.
Well, you see, then spiritually, there you go.
That's why they came.
That's why they came in.
Yeah,
There you
yeah.
go. So that's an interesting point, actually, that I'll discuss about why they do come in.
Right.
But they are always here for teachers. They come in to teach us. That's why they come in. But it's interesting that you point out for a surgeon, because you're absolutely right. You want them to do the best. You want them to be the best.
Right. I can give two shits about bedside manner necessarily. I mean, it always feels good if they can be kind. But for a surgeon who's going to go in my body and I want him to make the incision look really nice, I want him to be a narcissist.
Okay.
Yeah. In fact, because it's not public domain, right? The OBGYN who delivered Sydney, I ended up with a C-section, and he was a full-blown narcissist. You can barely see the incision.
Wow.
Barely see it. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So that was a good thing.
There you go.
So we toss around the word narcissist, and it's kind of used in our vocabulary, but there really is a very real personality disorder
Oh, yes.
of narcissist, and they really almost, I call it, like they don't have the chip in their brain on how to put themselves in someone else's shoes.
They have
right?
no compassion.
Wow.
They don't even understand the word compassion.
Yeah. Well, say a little bit more about narcissist.
About the personality disorder itself.
Yeah. Let's start with that, and then we'll go into
then we'll go into the spiritual being. Well, these are the people that really don't care what you feel. They don't really care. It's none of their business. They don't care how you feel. So they make you feel bad. Their ego syntonic to the max. I mean, these people really come in strictly to be with them and their ego.
Yes.
It's all about them.
Yeah.
They will never ask you how you're doing, and if they do, they really don't mean it. They don't want to listen.
Well, one thing I think that's important to understand about the narcissist is their behavior may be similar to someone else's. What's with the narcissist is what motivates that behavior.
Okay.
And there will always be something in it for them. Always. So, for example, if you're married to one and they throw you the most elaborate birthday party ever, someone who isn't a narcissist is doing it because they want you to enjoy and they want to celebrate you for your birthday. Right. Someone who is a narcissist will throw the exact same party, but it's for them. Oh my God, your husband or your wife is so great.
So they get
to
recognized.
Get all the attention.
Yeah,
exactly.
to get the attention.
So it's the motivation behind the action. And there is always something in it for them.
Gosh.
Yeah. It's important to know that. I mean, it's, again, neither here or there.
And we all know them. Again, we all know these people.
Yeah. The problem with personality disorders is we get the recipient of it, even if it's a coworker, you get so frustrated because you have this template. We have the template in our brain that people are supposed to act, that expectation thing we started talking about, accordingly.
Yeah.
And they don't. And the more we expect people to act, with social etiquette and that kind of stuff, the more frustrated we're going to be.
Oh, you bet.
Right?
Absolutely. Instead, what I do is I actually view them. It's almost like I'm watching an act. And that's how I protect myself with it, actually. I mean, if I know there's a borderline in the room or a narcissist, I actually observe him. Like, wow, I would have never thought to do that.
Right, exactly.
Wow,
kind
I'll
of
be
an
darned.
interesting
Look at them
specimen,
go.
right? But also, if you expected, when I coach some people at work and the coworker, will try to, because they want to shine, will tell you the wrong, you say, hey, what time is the meeting? And I'll say, it's at 10 and it's really at 9. Expect that. So if you know that your coworker's a narcissist, go and check it out by someone else, or have your own line of communication with your boss or something like that. Expect them to try and make you look bad.
What
Just
do you
know
do,
it.
Shirley, in the case where you have a mother that's a narcissist?
Well,
because we know that that's out there.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's really hard because, as we know, a child will always interpret a parent's behavior as something wrong with them, not something wrong with the parent. It would be too scary to think that the person who is supposed to keep me literally alive is damaged or, has something wrong with them. So that's a lot of work in therapy to help the person heal those wounds.
Do you personally tell your client or your patient that their mother is a narcissist?
Absolutely.
You do.
You know, once you've gained that relationship, because sometimes if you do it too early or if you do it at the wrong time, then they'll defend the parent. But when I've done it, you see the relief. Because they always thought it was them. And it's almost like you literally see a boulder come off their shoulder.
Absolutely.
You know? And then the healing can begin. And then they can start. And, you know, most people want to stay in touch with the parent. You know, some people decide to cut them off, and that's fine. And I think either way is healthy, whatever you need to do. But since you want to stay in a relationship with them, then you teach them how to be in a relationship with a parent who's a narcissist.
And then again, if I look at that from a spiritual standpoint, narcissism again, and we'll talk about borderline. Do you want to talk about borderline first?
Let's go with the spiritual since it's just coming up.
So if we go with a personality disorder, narcissism or borderline, we choose before we. First of all, where we come into this. This is school. This is our university here. This dimension is our university. So we come here to learn. And it's not necessarily an easy path. It can't be for anybody. And I've said that all along. So we choose our individual, we choose our parents, whether you know them, whether you don't know them, whether they died before you were born, it doesn't really matter. We choose the mother and the father, whether they're alcoholic, drug addict, bipolar, borderline, narcissism. Why would we choose? Why would we put ourselves in harm's way, if you will? Really? Why would we do that?
That's a great question. Tell us,
I'm
Kellee.
going to tell you. Well, it's first of all, I view personality disorders a little differently. I had an experience several years ago after I hit my head. I was working with somebody, and I looked at this. It was a woman. I looked right at her. Now, she's borderline. But when I looked at her through this lens that just came to me, I saw lifetime after lifetime of that she'd been traumatized. Lifetime after lifetime, down to the first, I could see the first time it had happened to her.
Wow.
And from that point, I viewed her, I still do, with compassion for the trauma. So you may think that this person comes into your life they've been traumatized. Obviously, in this life they've been traumatized, but it may not be this lifetime. It may be prior lifetimes that they come into. So why would we choose them as a sibling? Why would we choose them as a mother, a father, a good friend? Why would we do that? To learn. What are we learning? Well, maybe our life lesson is self-acceptance. Maybe our life lesson is to learn to be free, to break away from somebody. And that's okay to do, as you were just saying. It's okay, whatever the soul is really needing.
Right.
Let's say we are learning that to have compassion.
Right.
Like I can look at these people, and even though I get triggered, and believe me, I get triggered. We all
I
get
do
triggered,
too.
right?
Oh, yeah.
But I still can, I don't slam the door all the way. I'll leave the door open, and I'll put a lot of light out towards them. Because I do know that they're trying to recover from trauma. Now, sometimes you can give them as much love as you can, and sometimes they have to fall so far down. And then when you're picking them up again, sometimes at that point they will have some understanding. But it's a slow process.
It's a very slow process because they really don't see that they have a problem.
I know they
you
don't.
know?
That's what makes it so difficult.
That's what makes it so difficult. So let's go with the borderline, just because we've been talking about that. A lot of people think, borderline, they're on the border of what, And it's just a name that stuck back in the times of Freud. They thought these people fit a criteria that was on the border of psychosis and neuroses.
Wow.
And then they realized, oh no, they're their own entity, in and of
What's
themselves.
the difference between psychosis and neuroses?
Well, psychoses, someone who's neurotic, who's like,
somebody who's just a regular neurotic person. I'm anxious. I'm
Garden
depressed,
variety.
I'm this. I'm like up and down, like that. But somebody that's psychotic, that's somebody with really deep issues.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would say.
Yeah.
Deep issues of life and death issues. Sometimes.
Yeah, life and death issues that you can have hallucinations with that,
Yes.
and
Okay.
So So when they realized they were their own entity, they just kept the name borderline, which is upsetting to me because it confuses a lot of people. Frankly, I believe that it's the people who have to deal with them that are on the border of insanity.
Oh.
That's the way I've always seen it,
Yeah.
because borderline is probably one of the most difficult, one of the worst to work with, even to have, because they're so tormented inside themselves that it's just awful.
They almost attack themselves.
They do. There is, the narcissist, I don't give a shit. The borderlines are tormented. They torment people, and they're tormented themselves. And it's people who rage. They see almost everything as a slight, or a criticism, and so they'll rage against it.
Right. And you'll recognize one because you'll be walking on eggshells. That's how you'll recognize
Exactly.
them.
The moment you think, oh my God, I'm walking on eggshells, which actually there's a very good book about borderline personality disorder called Stop Walking
on Eggshells. Yeah.
If you ever ask yourself that question, you may be dealing with someone who's a borderline. So they split people, they talk bad, so-and-so said this about you, and they split people together.
Because they don't have anything inside. They have no feeling, or they have no...
Sounds like a big void.
It's like a void inside.
And this starts in childhood as well?
Yes.
Well, and I'm going back further.
Oh,
so
right.
yes, I
For
believe that they
lifetimes.
absolutely, it starts in childhood. You'll recognize it pretty early on, actually. But it actually goes back many, many, many lifetimes. Like a parent may say, what did I do? I have other kids. I never saw this before. What did I do here?
Right.
And it's not that there's medication for this.
There is, and
necessarily.
interestingly enough, anti-seizure medication is what they see works.
Really?
At least a few years ago, yeah. The interesting thing is probably someone who is a very, low-functioning borderline, meaning that they're at the extreme of the borderline personality disorders. What happens neurologically, which I thought this was fascinating, is we have two circuits in the brain. The primitive part of the brain tells us run away from something scary because that's what saved our species. So something scary, you take off running or you fight it, There's in the limbic area, there's another circuitry that says run towards your attachment figure for safety. Again, that's what kept our species alive. So what happens with the borderline is many times that attachment figure is the one that's the scary person. So you have two circuitries in the brain, I'm getting scared, oh my God, run away. The other circuitry telling you run towards that person that you're attached to, but it's the same person. So you're running away and towards the same person, and it almost does like this, what is it, this... the circuitry of the brain just kind of goes crazy, which is why they hate you. There's another one of the first books written on this was I hate you, don't leave me. Right. So you see that I love you, I hate you, I love you, I hate you. So you see that kind of,
and it's very difficult for the person that's not the borderline. It's very difficult for either the family member or the friend or the husband or the wife. It's very difficult. And so I would always, I tell my people, if you can, number one, just observe them. They're going to act out. They're going to do whatever they're going to do.
Yeah.
But instead, if you can, if it's possible, just shower them with love, and it will confuse them. It will confuse them.
Will.
Give them a lot of love, and if you have to walk away, you walk away. But you have to ask yourself, how much? Sometimes you'll have to ask yourself, how much can I take?
Right, and why am I here?
And why am I here?
Yeah,
Why am I doing this? And maybe that's the lesson you've come to learn. Like, what? Wait a minute. I can't be treated badly anymore. And then that person, the borderline, that person will have to either come to some place, and maybe they'll go on to the next person.
Right.
But eventually, I believe, my guides have said, eventually they will go back to source, fully aware of what's going on with them. Like fully.
What do you mean go back to source?
Once they, they cross over to the other side,
okay.
And then they'll do their life review, and then they'll probably have another life. They'll come back in another life and try to work on not doing that. They'll be able to have a little more insight.
Yeah.
But in other words, eventually they will go through. They will get through this. Eventually, it may not be in this lifetime.
Yeah. Well, part of that issue is because they don't think that there's anything wrong, and they can't control it. They have such a hard time controlling the rage that comes up like a tsunami. And so when they're lambasting you and letting you have it, they can't control it. And so the best thing for the recipient of it is to be able to set clear boundaries, say, I will not tolerate this, and walk away. And actually, that works really well for them because they feel contained. Somebody else is kind of containing them because they can't do it for themselves.
Yeah. Now, but when you
So-
do that, they get really angry too if you walk away.
They can, but eventually they'll stop themselves because they know you'll walk away.
Yeah.
Another thing with borderlines, you cannot give
true.
them an inch because they'll take them out. The one day you don't walk away,
Right.
forget about it. It
Right.
goes right back to how it was before.
And it could be a beautiful day, everything could be going great, and all of a sudden they get triggered, and you just don't know what the trigger is going to be.
Exactly. And so if you ever think, besides I'm walking on eggshells, if you ever think, is it me or is it, then you're probably working with someone who has a personality disorder. Another thing with them is that they kind of lack a solid identity. So they kind of go with whatever is kind of the most popular thing. They have a really hard time keeping relationships because you will always do something that I will take as a slight, And so what I always talk about with my patients is, especially when they meet someone new, is always ask, do you have long-term friends?
Oh, absolutely.
They can have long-distance long-term friends. In other words, friends that don't live in the area. Right. But almost always they won't have long-term friends that live in the area because they will always fight with them, and the friend eventually leaves. Right. So if someone says they don't have long-term friends, then not that only one thing will determine a borderline, but that's a huge red flag.
Another red flag are jobs. They'll have many jobs.
Yeah, the high
over
functioning
and over
ones,
and over.
The high functioning ones will probably keep a job, but they'll be the rainmaker. And so everybody
Okay.
else has to deal with it. But if they're a rainmaker, corporations will be more tolerant.
But
of
spiritually, what I would say is really see what it brings out in you. If it brings out in you of great fear, deal with your fear on it, because don't let them get you like that. Don't detach yourself. Like literally, if you have to imagine a hook, just unhook yourself from them so you can observe it.
Yeah.
So you can observe it so you don't take it in. Like, oh, God, that person's going to be here. If you can, just unhook it and kind of be okay with the fact that they're going to act out.
Well, that brings up a good point about unhooking when you say that, because we have energetic cords that are attached to one another, right? So
yes,
if you could talk a little bit about that.
Well, absolutely.
Okay.
So especially if you have a relative, let's say if we just go with a relative, that's one. An energetic cord is from what it's an attachment that I would have with you or I would have with you, and it would be a healthy attachment. You can say to me whatever, I can say to you whatever, and we have a healthy attachment, whether it's a love attachment or a friendship attachment. In a case where you have some sort of personality disorder and the person is a relative or something, it's an unhealthy attachment. So they can easily trigger you with chaos, easily trigger you. You could be anywhere, and all of a sudden, this person triggers you, and you can't even believe how upset you get.
Oh yeah, no one will make you lose it more
Nobody.
than
You
a
can
borderline.
lose it so
they get
fast.
under your
Right.
skin like nobody's
So if you
business.
can visualize spiritually, it's a great point. If you can visualize unhooking that and letting it go and releasing it, unhooking that attachment you have. I don't care if it's your own daughter. Some people have that. Not you, Holiday. Not you,
Sydney,
Sydney. But there are parents that have children that are borderline that they're afraid of. And I'm not telling you you can't love them. You do love them. Love them with all your heart. And you always want to give them that, but you unhook yourself of them. It's not easy to do.
No, it's
And I'm
not.
not
It's
suggesting even
not.
walking away, but at least don't get caught up on the roller coaster of what they can do, what they do, of their behavior. Their behavior is not you.
Right.
You have to remember that.
I think I had one that couldn't stand to be ignored.
Oh.
That really triggered her.
They don't like to be ignored.
And if you cut her off in any way, then she would rage, as you were
Yeah.
talking about. And so how do you prepare yourself for that? And what do you do in a situation like that when they're raging, because you don't know how to handle it, because they get, in this particular case, got really, what's the word I want to use? Started calling other people, like, do the division thing.
Right.
Like you were mentioning before. And then also just started to make my life a living hell with other people by saying things.
Well, you have to have clear communication with everyone around and say, if so-and-so says something that I said about you, please check it out with me first.
Yeah. Okay.
So have a clear contract with whether it's at work or friends or, yeah.
And I would ask you, what did you learn from that?
Well,
Was there a red flag ahead of time?
Probably so, because when you mentioned that didn't have a lot of friends, but she would always say that the friends cut her off, or she cut them off. So it was kind of hard.
course.
It's kind of
And
hard.
you have a big heart.
Yeah, yeah. So you didn't want to be the one that would abandon, because she'd always use
Right.
the fear of abandonment, because
Yeah.
no one would ever stick around. So
Right,
it's
right.
like, what do you do? But then I've heard many times where she said, I clipped them. I clipped them out of my life. So like she would be the one that would initiate
Well,
the.
and even if they clipped her,
disconnect.
that means that they were healthy enough to say, I can't have this in my
Right,
life.
right.
You know? So either way, whoever clipped who doesn't matter.
And what I
Yeah.
did have noticed is they'll go after big-hearted people.
Oh,
Yeah.
You know,
Oh, yeah.
somebody that will listen to them and their
Well,
woes.
because they desperately want that love. But
desperately.
also, once they get it, what happens is it switches, and it's not like they know it's switching in their brain, but there's so much self-loathing that I hate you for liking me, because if you love me and I'm awful, then you must be awful. So they have this switch. It's kind of like goes along with what the famous Groucho Marx thing, I wouldn't join a club that wants me as a member.
Yeah.
There's that self-loathing that happens also.
And the other term that they will often use is "I feel empty,"
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
and they actually do feel empty.
do
That's
feel
what I was
empty.
saying. Their inner core is empty. So what I try to do spiritually is give them a lot of love. I am not attached to them. I try very hard, even though I will know some of them very, very well, very well. And I do get triggered. I'm not saying I'm not. I do. But I try very hard
Yeah.
to take the attachment and put it over here, and then and view them from a spiritual lens. And when everybody out there, if you know anybody, view them as, imagine in your head, what in the world do you think they would have gone through in either, maybe this lifetime, maybe they were abused in this lifetime, but generally speaking, it probably goes further back and further back and further back, because I actually saw it go back and back and back of what would have caused this. Were they raped? Were they maligned? Were they left alone to starve to death? Think like that in those terms. It will give you compassion. And maybe that's why, first of all, that's why we are all here, is to have compassion and love for other beings. Doesn't mean that you have to attach yourself to them and you're the only one that's going to help them. It doesn't mean that at all.
And it also doesn't mean that you have to tolerate the behavior.
no.
Having compassion doesn't mean you have to sit there and take it.
You don't have to be their teacher either. You can actually just
Exactly.
love them and walk away too.
Right, exactly. That's so important because, what you were saying, John, is what you do when she's raging at you.
Yeah.
If you can get off the phone, then get off the phone. And if not, try and stay as separate from that as possible. And, I understand. You sound so hurt. You sound, and if you have to keep your voice monotone, because there's another thing about nervous system to nervous system is we mimic each other. So if I'm talking like this, even if you're up here, if I keep talking like this, at some point you're going to come down to meet me, unknowingly. That's just
So
how
that
our
brings
nervous
calm.
system works.
That would bring calm
So
to
that
them?
would help them calm down. It might take a while, but it will help them calm down. But if you jump into the soup with them and start yelling at them, but I didn't do that, it'll just go nowhere. So either get off the phone, and set a clear boundary. I'll talk to you when you're more calm. I can't.
Which will
I
set them
will-
off if you say that.
Well, and that's fine, but then
But-
you've gone off the phone,
Oh,
and they know that
absolutely.
they can only talk to you when
That's
they're
very
calm.
true.
So you're almost training them. That's a kind of a function of operant conditioning, right?
Yes,
You're almost
yes.
training them that they talk to you. I will hear anything you have to say, but I won't hear it when you're insulting me. I'm going to get off the phone right now and call me back when you're more calm. Click, and you hang up. Yeah. Or if you have to, if you're in a situation where you can't leave, keep your voice monotone, not in an obvious way, but I'm so sorry. It sounds like you're hurting. Or sometimes, you wait until they stop. And eventually, if you're not talking back, they will stop at some point. Wow.
Yeah.
And from a spiritual standpoint, you've taught me that you just kind of, as they're, dishing it out, you kind of sit there and imagine yourself kind of covered.
I protect myself. If
protection.
I know I'm going to be in a situation where I have a client or somebody that I know, and they're out there, and I have them.
Yeah.
I actually surround myself with as like a real thick, heavy-duty glass or plastic shield,
Yeah.
if you will, literally. Nothing that they can't get in. So whatever they're going to do, they're going to attack, or something to trigger me. I imagine it, and then it just bounces off. So I can walk away, and I can be okay.
Yeah.
I can walk away okay. And it doesn't mean, again, that I'm not going to get attacked or you're not going to get attacked. Or we all know these people. They're out there. We're in Hollywood, too. They're out there.
Oh, yeah.
in
They're
LA.
out there.
Especially
And-
narcissists in
Oh,
Hollywood, right?
Oh, yeah.
Well, the narcissists, but the borderlines too. And,
Yeah.
and also, something about them is that they so desperately want to connect. And so you need to be careful for people who connect too fast.
Oh,
you know?
such a good point, Shirley.
Because I have so many women that, you know, are in my practice, and I met this guy, and, you know, after the second date, I want to marry you. And I'm like, red flag, red flag. Right. Too much is too soon. And many times we can feel flattered about that. But too much is too soon. The person that calls you 20 times in the day, that's another key.
Oh, that's key. If you get 20 texts in a day, you know you have a borderline on you.
Exactly. Between that one,
Unless their house really is on fire.
right, exactly.
You know, and it better be.
Right, exactly. But that's, I think, the two key, even though they seem small and maybe somewhat insignificant, is do they have long-term friends that live in the same city as them?
Right.
And when they can't reach you, do they call you 10 times in a row?
Right. Now, at first, it may feel flattering. Okay.
Yeah.
And after that,
It's not.
You better wake up and pay attention.
Yeah,
It's not.
That was
not.
one of the hardest things, was the constant phone calls and texts.
So you understand
Oh,
exactly
yeah,
what we're talking
I
about.
definitely do.
Yeah. So in that case, setting a boundary.
I had to eventually block my phone number from Verizon. Then she started calling me from other phones.
Wow.
Other
Oh,
people's phones.
wow. True borderline.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And could not stand to be ignored. So this was really, really difficult. So I felt like I was making the problem worse by blocking, but I just didn't know how to handle it because it just got more and more out of control.
Well, you know, interesting. You carry so much light, John. And I'm wondering if they go after light as well. And which
Yeah.
really leads me down to
well,
talk
it's interesting
about.
because she's supposed to be a light worker.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Interesting.
We've all seen that.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
really funny.
Yeah.
Because a lot of them will come as a disguise like that.
Right.
But it leads me to talk about psychopaths.
The
Because
sociopaths.
Really, or the sociopaths and then psychopaths.
Right.
But it reminds me of what you're talking about. Her behavior sounds almost really a little more than
Probably
just
was.
borderline.
They can have, especially within the clusters, you know, they can have, if someone's a borderline, they can have some sociopathic tendencies and some narcissistic tendencies. They do say that the narcissist and the borderline are on the same continuum.
Yeah.
But on, you know.
Because I could see her having delusions of grandeur.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, and that would be a narcissist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what I was about to ask, was that question, do they ever overlap in the sense of characteristics?
Oh, they can. They can with the
Okay.
sociopath too. And sometimes the narcissist may look sociopathic because they just
Okay.
don't care.
And sometimes they'll be like 50% one and 50% the other. It all depends.
It doesn't, you know.
It
So
just
it can
depends.
be. They can fall just into one category, or they can have a mix of other ones. But
That would
just
be difficult to diagnose, wouldn't
just
it?
to finish.
Well, how you just diagnose sociopaths actually is you have to see the behavior. You can't really, if you meet with them, they're so charming, most of them, you'll
Yeah.
miss it.
Yeah.
So you almost have to, my mother taught me this, you have to see the behavior, you have to hear about the behavior. And then you go, they did what? You know, and then you know you're onto something.
Okay.
yeah, when there really is no remorse or no capacity
remorse.
for empathy and remorse at all. And so, but they're charming. And you know, just say one more thing about borderlines. That too, because as people hear the description of a borderline, they're like, well, why would anyone even talk to them ever?
Yeah. Right.
Because there's that one side. They're like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. There's that one side that's so charismatic
Yeah.
and so fun. And they're so
fun. They
they're
are fun.
so much fun.
Yeah, fun.
Yeah. They're like, hey, let's go that. Let's go this.
Okay.
Exactly. And when the connection is made, that's when the other side comes, because now they start to fear abandonment, and then you're too close and you're too
So
far.
it is when the connection is
It's
made.
when that bond is made at the beginning, and the more the better functioning ones can hold on for a while, and so that bond isn't for 6 months or a year. And then all of a sudden it hits. It's
Kaboom.
when that connection is made. You know, it's what Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. I can't remember who's the monster one.
I don't remember.
Yeah, okay. So then that other one shows up. So they're extremely charismatic, just like a sociopath, and that's why you don't see them coming. But just to answer your question of how many times they call, a great way to set a boundary where you're not stating you're setting a boundary is you don't answer the phone. If they call you 10 times, you don't answer, and then you call them back if this is someone that you need to stay in a relationship with or whatever. You call them back when you can talk.
Okay.
That subtly lets them know. They may still do it, but that will let them know that you're not going to. But the minute you answer one phone call, a lot of people will answer it on the 6th time and go, "What? I'm busy." You answered that on the 6th time. That will that lets them know that
So
they can
true.
continue to do it.
That's like the baby that's crying for the bottle, or crying
Like
for
the little
attention.
kid that throws a tantrum when you say no
Yeah.
candy, and all of a
Yeah.
sudden then you give him a piece of candy.
Yeah.
Then that kid learns, okay, the bigger the tantrum, the more I get my way.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
So tell us about sociopaths and psychopaths.
So
So
sociopaths.
what's the difference? Because you have a difference. I always thought that it was kind of the same thing.
Sociopath,
With just two different names.
A psychopath is somebody that'll just go after somebody and kill them. I mean, a psychopath
Okay.
is somebody that, to me, that has truly no conscience.
Okay,
None.
so that's like at the extreme.
None.
Yeah.
Not that sociopaths have much of a conscience. I don't think they do either. But psychopaths are, I mean, I would have to say the worst. But from a spiritual standpoint, from what I understand, and my one of my mentors is Mavis Patilla. She's an incredible medium, and she taught me that psychopaths and sociopaths too, actually, that before we incarnate, so that the soul, so the body, we have the baby's going to be born, and the soul doesn't enter the body. The soul kind of hovers about and never gets in.
Oh.
And so therefore they are, you know, when you say they're soulless, well, they are. They have no light.
You know what? That is so interesting because you can tell a sociopath or a psychopath because they have kind of dead eyes.
Oh, interesting.
You know, if you look into the eyes of, you know, and maybe just look them up, you know, Ted Bundy or whatever, if you look at their eyes, there's like nothing behind the eyes. They're dead. And that's so
it.
that have no soul.
Yeah.
The soul's hovering up here somewhere or something.
And from what I understand, again, this would have been created lifetimes, hundreds of lifetimes ago, probably, where whatever happened to them that just kept coming in with less light and less light and less light and less light to the point where that's why you'll have a sociopath at a certain degree or a psychopath at a certain degree.
Yeah.
They're-
Well, some people will cheat someone, you know, try and get away with something, and other people end up to be Ted Bundys. I mean, you know, the serial killers. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it's from what I understand, lifetimes of this, and each time they have to keep coming back. And from what my guys have said to me, is it's nothing that can be done about it as far as you and I, as far as the therapist goes. We can't help that.
No, it's kind of like that old, you know, Sopranos, you know, the finale. I never watched it, but we analyzed the finale, you know.
It was a good finale.
Yeah, about how he was kind of conning her. He was seeing her to make himself feel better about the crimes he was committing, so she wasn't really doing a
You're
dent.
talking about the psychologist.
The
Or the
psychologist.
psychiatrist.
Yeah, or psychiatrist that was, you know, the character, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, I hate to say this because I always have this hope that we can help people.
There's certain ones I was told don't even go there.
Wow.
Don't even go
But,
there.
yeah.
Don't let it go.
And there's no medications for them. huh?
Oh no. No.
I used to have more of a, you know, I guess, you know, Susie Sunshine kind of
Yeah, no, I
disposition.
did
And
not.
now if, you know, a couple came to me and he was, I mean, just probably one of the worst sociopaths I've ever met. And he left early. And it's the one time I've ever said this. I said, run. Don't walk slow. Turn around and run because this is not a good thing. And then he wanted to see me individually. And I said, no. It was kind of like, you know.
You could tell.
And it was life's too short kind of thing because he had a lot of, in this lifetime, a lot of severe issues with his mother, so he hated women, but with such disgust. So I knew he was going to have to tear me down before I can even, and I, you know, and it could be very dangerous too.
Absolutely. But it's in this lifetime, you know, it's not for us necessarily to go after and try to heal those people. Not really. It's really the help. We can help the borderlines. You know, the best that we can.
Well, the borderlines
we can help the
with.
narcissists if they want it.
Yeah, the borderlines.
I mean,
what
if they want it.
Yeah, what I've heard,
We can help the people actually that are living with them.
Well, that's for the
that's
most part,
really
definitely.
actually
'Cause
that's
some
probably
people will come to us saying, you know, I can't handle it anymore. I have this person at work or my mother or my, you know, that we can help. And the borderline, you really help with helping them get in touch with their body so well that they can tell when that rage is coming. And if you can tell and you have a split second to take a step back, then a lot of times they can start to learn how to control that rage. And that's a big part of their issue is they get blinded and they really can't control themselves. But that's why if you're the recipient of it, you shouldn't have to sit there and take it either.
No,
as much
absolutely.
compassion as you have for someone.
No, and you know what I have found too, that it's very, very helpful for my people, my clients or my patients, one of the two. If I realize that they're with a borderline, if I know that they're with a borderline, I'll say it. I'll say, you know, I believe this person is a borderline. And once we get a diagnosis on that person, I cannot tell you how helpful that is
Oh, yeah.
to the people that come to see. They're like, wow, oh my God. And then they can view it as, I hate to say as separate, but then they can separate themselves and go, whoa, then they can make it's not me, it's them. That's correct. It is not you.
Right,
It's
so they
actually
can be
them.
more tolerant, they could be more
Yes,
compassionate,
if
and we
they
can teach them
want.
how to deal with
And
them.
Absolutely. So I can say for my personal life, I know that I've had these experiences with borderlines and sociopaths. I've had them too. I've had it all.
Yeah.
That I've had it, so I can actually help explain to other people, to my people that come to see me.
Yeah.
You know what is going on. That's not normal.
Right.
You know, and then you have to be very careful too. If you're living with a sociopath, you have to be very, very careful about leaving because they will go after you too. So you've got to be careful.
You have to have a huge support system
Huge
and ask,
support system.
ask questions.
Right.
And
maybe it's your soul's wanting help too. Maybe you came in to get help. That's why you have this husband that's a sociopath.
Right. Or could it be that you're in this, in this lifetime, you're the one that breaks that kind of energetic loop that you're talking about?
Absolutely. In fact, you could not only be breaking it for yourself, you could be breaking it for several generations back.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So what I really want to caution everybody who's listening to this is please don't think that you have this information, you've identified your narcissist or your borderline, and you're going to run and tell them because you think, oh, my God.
No.
Yes.
No. Right?
No.
I know what they are now and I can tell them. As a therapist, and I'm sure you do the same thing, I will never tell a borderline that they're a borderline or a narcissist that they're a narcissist because they're so not in touch with it, they will actually get mad at you.
Oh, my gosh.
So do not tell them that they have it. Just know it for yourself and then, read, on how to better deal with them if you have to continue to deal with them.
Right. And take care of yourself.
Yeah.
Take care of yourself. And also, if I know that I have a borderline, often what I'll do is I'll teach them about spirituality, meditation. If they can get in touch with meditation and try to help themselves to fill themselves up with some love and compassion for themselves. Sometimes I'll take them down a road of, look, let's talk about your childhood. And your father was this. And we'll go through that.
Right.
And help them understand they're here to love themselves. Help them to feel compassion for themselves of what they went through. Sometimes that helps. And sometimes that helps work.
Yeah. I mean, anything that can help, give them a sense
they still have light. They still have light.
Yeah.
They do.
Yeah.
The borderlines.
The borderlines, absolutely.
Yeah. Sociopaths.
No, I'd say not so much.
It's
And psychopaths, none.
Yeah, it's a tough one. I mean, we're not, it's hard dealing with them. They're a hard group to deal with. Yeah. But we hope that we've enlightened you a little bit. And if you have any questions, please, can they put questions on the website on UBN?
Well, they can put it on our Facebook, right?
On the Facebook,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, Both Sides Now TV on Facebook.
And if there are any subjects you'd like us to talk about, let us know, please.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, we can't diagnose anybody, and we can't, can't be a therapist over Facebook. But if you have, a question that maybe we can help out with, please feel free to, shoot it to us, and we'll do our best to answer it.
Yeah.
You bet.
Yeah. So thank you for joining us, and I'll say good afternoon. Have a wonderful rest of your Sunday.
Have a great week.
You've been listening to Both Sides Now, featuring the unconventional duo Dr. Shirley and Kellee White. Two perspectives, one world.
Great. That was really good. Yeah, very